Usually it takes other people to mirror back your superpower because you don't really know it. But a lot of times people waste their superpower, A, because they don't know it, or B, then because they're put in a role that is not leveraging that superpower. So, and that's where you get down to what I was calling the micro mindset is usually what is most related to your superpower. So it's the kind of thing that's just natural to you. So you perform way above the norm without trying. That's the basic idea of a superpower. And of course, people can have multiple superpowers. So again, with a genius, so you're basically just being you.
Good morning, good day, and good afternoon. This is the Connekt Unplugged podcast. Wow, first one for 2026 with Kallum and myself and the world-renowned NLP master trainer, pioneer, developer, Robert Dilts, who's joining us all the way from California. And Kallum will share a little bit about you to the world.
Okay.
Thanks, Conor. Today's guest needs very little introduction in the world of neuro-linguistic programming. Robert Dilts is one of the original developers of NLP, a globally respected master trainer, author, and thought leader whose work has shaped the way millions understand human excellence, belief systems, and behavioral change. From logical levels to sleight of mouth, Robert's models influence coaches, leaders, therapists, and organizations worldwide for decades. And most recently, he created the success factor modeling, a powerful new evolution of NLP that goes beyond surface behaviors to identify the deep structural patterns that drive sustained success across individuals, teams, and organizations. In this conversation today, we explore what truly creates excellence, how success can be modeled with precision and integrity, and why this work represents a major step forward in the future of NLP and human performance. It's an honor to welcome one of the true architects of the field, Robert Dilts. Thanks for being here.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow,
I'm touched and honored. It's great to be here with you guys again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back.
Okay.
I think the last time I saw your face was at the 50th anniversary of NLP last year. Congratulations for hosting that and putting that on. I'd love to dive a little bit more into that in a moment. But one of the questions I had for you is you raised a question with everyone there, which I thought was brilliant. You broke us out into groups and you set a topic for us to talk about. And when we broke out into the groups, it was really interesting the different thoughts that people had. And that topic was, who should we model next? Where should we find examples of excellence to model next? And it was really interesting hearing the different points of view of the people that were in the breakout rooms. My question, Robert, is, who do you think we should?
Sorry, what was that question, Cal?
Who do you think we should model next?
Oh, who do I think we should model next? Well, that's a great question. For me, I'm thinking, because I'm actually working on my Strategies of Genius Volume 4, which are the geniuses that I knew personally. And I was thinking, who would I want to include in this? And I was, for me, I think it's, to be honest, one of the people that comes to my mind is Gregory Bateson's daughter, Nora Bateson. Is a very interesting person. And the reason I say that is I think we need to get to sort of more systemic understanding in our world. I mean, I can also think of many, many other, think of famous people that would be interesting to model. Frankly, another person that comes to my mind that would, I think, be a very fascinating person to model would be somebody like Anthony Robbins, who's a public figure. He's out there. He knows NLP, but I don't know that anybody's actually modeled him, in terms of what he's done and how he's done it. I kind of move around. I could think of people in the, also in the business world, and who are doing interesting things. I personally, would be fascinated to model somebody like a Richard Branson, who has done, started multiple successful companies, but I think is also has a good heart and is somebody who wants to do good things in the world. So I don't know. Those are a few that come to my mind.
Hi there, this is Conor and Kallum from Connekt Coaching. Hope you are enjoying the Unplugged podcast. Nothing lights us up more than seeing businesses thrive, especially in uncertain times. We have 32 combined years of doing nothing but mentoring and training businesses from around the globe in order to increase their revenue and thrive in uncertain times. So what we would like to do is share with you a little bit about what we've discovered over the last 32 years.
We've created this amazing business model called the Forever Business Model, and we want to give it to you for free. All you need to do is jump down into the description below. There's a link there called Steal Our Forever Business Model. Click on the link. There's a 9-minute video that you can watch where we unpack everything you need to know to implement it in your business right away.
But I'm curious.
Clayton's daughter, tell me a little bit about why, because you alluded a little bit to why you think she would be great.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit more about why?
Well, because, I think I have actually done a few things, presented a few things with her, and I just really like the way she thinks. And I guess the main reason is I think we really need this kind of more of the systemic thinking perspective now. And I think that she grew up in that. She was, because Gregory Bateson was, one of the key people at the beginning of NLP, is one of the founders of systems theory and cybernetics, and really was the inspiration for a lot of systemic, therapies and things like that. So I think she grew up in this systemic way of looking at the world, and I think she has internalized it. But the whole key of modeling is to be able to take what has been internalized and make it explicit, so that that it's not just that she's doing it naturally, but then you can actually take that and begin to to spread it, to teach it. So that's why. And again, I think our world today is in desperate need of more, sort of bigger picture, longer term systemic perspective than just the sort of short term kind of, linear, I don't know, say, more just, achieve a specific goal at all costs, rather than looking at, well, what is the impact of this and how can we actually, have a better sense of what consequences, what are the consequences of what we're doing?
Yeah.
And Cal, you have
I know, I can see he's thinking.
I mean, there's so many different places I could have gone with that, but I would agree that, definitely having the ability to think ecologically and think on, and this is one of the things I love about your work, not just thinking on one level. One of the things that Tad taught us was that not to just be single track minded, be multi-track minded, kind of like classical music, right? Like I grew up, and that certainly helped me to think, on multiple levels about things and the way things were structured and fit it all together. And Tad used to say, look, whenever you're doing something, it becomes much more efficient and much more, aligned if you're thinking in a multi-track function, because you're able to think globally, locally, inductively, deductively, chunk up, chunk down. And then, how that fits into the greater ecosystems of things. And that changed the game for me about business as well.
Yes.
Especially, we're talking about modeling. One of the first things that we did when we started Connekt Coaching was we modeled Conor's sales process, which is now called the Forever Client Matrix. And it's one of our trainings. And it was interesting to see so many levels to how that system works. And that's why it's so effective. It seems so simple now that we put it into a model, but the amount of subtleties, nuances that are in it that actually create this different style of sales that isn't so much about, buy or die or, closing people at all costs. It's more about building relationships and having trust. And, there's a lot of prime concerns work in the way that we do sales, because, if we just sit on the surface level, like you said, you're just dealing with the content, you're not actually dealing with the structure that's underneath. So I love what you said about Bates disorder, because I do think that some of NLP's greatest gifts to the world are these models that we've been able to create. It expands generationally and can actually impact and have a positive effect generationally.
Cool.
I heard a guy called Scott Adams talking about, how he popularized the word framing and free framing, but it was actually NLP that did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think those are some of the greatest gifts that NLP has to give. And I like
Well, I really like what you were just saying, Kallum, about, this whole idea of chunking up, chunking down on multiple levels. That's actually, one of the 10 core patterns of genius, that has come out of all that, my modeling of many geniuses from many different areas. And so I think that ability to think multi-level, as you were saying, chunk down, chunk up, chunk laterally. That's
logically. Yeah. Laterally.
Yeah. So, and by the way, one other reason I was starting with Nora is also because she's a woman. And I think we need to model more of that, get more of that sort of yin way of thinking in our world.
Virginia's work was just incredible to watch, and there was actually more to that than I think the Structure of Magic 1 and 2 let us know about. That was some of her physiological archetypal coaching that she did. And I watched some old videos of hers where, she put the family members in different positions. So she took the child into the husband's position, put the husband and put in the child's position. And then she got the family to act that system out. And I'm like, I don't think there would be necessarily a guy that would think of doing that. It was definitely that feminine mate that actually thought of doing that. Which
it's that deep relational thinking, I think. And as you put your finger on it, it's that sort of like Bateson and his daughter always thought of relationship first rather than object, if you will. So it's the relationship to the foundation.
Relationship.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about modeling.
Yes.
How is traditional modeling that one would learn at a traditional NLP? I mean, what is a traditional NLP training versus success factor modeling?
Sure.
They both share a common keyword. How is the success factor modeling different compared to the traditional modeling?
So very first thing is that with success factor modeling, let me start with traditional NLP modeling. If you look at, who are the models, you have individuals. And success factor modeling was designed to look not only at individuals, but at teams and at organizations as a whole. So typically, if you take, this, you were mentioning Structure of Magic, Conor, well, they were modeling these individuals and what they did. But the whole purpose that success factor modeling serves is basically, how do you create a successful venture, which could be, of course, a traditional venture as a business, but a venture could be any kind of a project. But it's going to involve multiple people. And so you're sort of looking at these other types of patterns and other levels of patterns. So for example, when you look at an individual, particular eye movements might be important. But if you're looking at a whole group or a team, you got to look for different kinds of, key performance indicators, if you will, different kinds of success factors. Now, that being said, very often the same, and kind of you were alluding to this, Kallum, that same kind of a deeper pattern is going to work on an individual level, a team level, an organizational level. And so those are a lot of the kinds of things that we look for in success factor modeling. So, so again, oftentimes the traditional NLP approach is, I'm going to kind of really try to get second position with this person, really, kind of go deep into this one individual, sort of psyche or strategy. Whereas with success factor modeling, we are looking at these, maybe you could call them these larger patterns that connect. So, and it explicitly is using the other thing that it explicitly uses is clearly mapping out all of the different, particular levels of change, from environment, behavior, capability, beliefs, etc. To really look at the whole pyramid, if you will, of these factors.
So it sounds like there are many more moving parts, and you
Yes,
have to really step out and see the forest as opposed to
exactly.
looking through the trees. A good friend of yours, David Shepherd, just joined us, and he's watching us
Oh,
with us.
great.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Dave. Well,
So that's really interesting. So it's almost like modeling on steroids,
yeah.
in terms of the expanding of it,
Well,
as you said, to include teams. And I would imagine, excuse me, incredibly valuable in business, uh,
yes, yes. That, I mean, it
to
came
to
specifically
drive
from,
high performing winning cultures.
yeah. So specifically, I mean, the birth of it came because my late younger brother John, we all grew up in the Silicon Valley area.
Yeah.
Apple was my first corporate client back in 1980,
Very
and
cool.
so
You work with Steve Jobs, or
I did not work directly with Steve Jobs. I certainly, our paths crossed.
yeah, yeah,
But
amazing.
I never coached him individually. I like to think if I had, he would still be around today. Um, so my brother John and I, we grew up in Silicon Valley. My brother
Mm.
John, his path was through law and finance. So he had a law degree, was involved in finance, and he was working in these Silicon Valley law firms that represented companies like Oracle, like Yahoo, these big companies,
Mm.
and then also a lot of startups. And one of the things he realized, because he would sit on both sides, right? Sometimes he would be with the firm representing an entrepreneur going to investors. Sometimes they'd be representing the investors looking at an entrepreneur. And one of the things he started to realize was that the business plan did not determine success. And that a lot of times people, when they invested, they didn't look, the business plan was not, the numbers were not what they were looking at. They were looking at the person. And he started to
Mm.
realize that what actually were the keys to success was not how much money somebody got, you know, was not what was their business plan, it was something to do with something deeper in that person's, not in that person, but oftentimes it was the type of vision, the quality of leadership, the quality of
Mm.
action. So he started realizing that some of these things were, you know, outside of the traditional law and legal and financial aspects. And so we joined forces and we said, okay, we're going to look at both business practices, but also behavioral skills and put those two things together. And that's really where success factor modeling started. And so because he was, coaching a lot of entrepreneurs, I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs, not all of who succeed. In fact, most
Mm.
don't.
Mhm.
And we started looking at, well, so, what are the differences that make the difference? When somebody succeeds, what is there? How can we map that out? And, Callum was talking about the modeling that you guys did and how now it seems so simple. And that's the key.
Yes,
You want to take
exactly.
something that has all these different layers and factors and make it simple. And that was the whole goal of success factor modeling. And
I
so,
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
It
So we
Hey,
started
Rob.
way with there's there's three books out on it. Well, actually there's more than that now, but the first one was called Next Generation Entrepreneur, which was all a next generation entrepreneur we defined as somebody who wants to live their dream and make a better world through their business or their venture.
Mm.
Second volume was on what we call generative collaboration, which is around, it's about releasing the creative power of collective intelligence. So collective intelligence, again, is different than an individual intelligence. So modeling collective IQ is really different than modeling individual IQ. The
Mm.
third volume was on conscious leadership and resilience. So we said, which is about, um, creating fitness for the future. And then there's also another one on what we call generative consulting. And then more recently, I've been modeling successful healthcare ecosystems. So this is another thing about success factor modeling. We're looking at not just a doctor, right? Not even just a hospital,
Mm.
but a healthcare ecosystem. And when things work well, how is that ecosystem functioning? So, and by the way, just as another quick point, it was one of the things I started realizing growing up in Silicon Valley people were trying to make, I remember talking to people that were trying to make like a Silicon Valley in, Cambridge, England. They're going, oh, we have more more Nobel Prize winners here than, per capita than anyone else. I said, yeah, but that's not the point. That's not going to make a Silicon Valley, because it's an ecosystem, right? It's a whole system. You can't just go, oh, it's smart people. No, it's the whole ecosystem. And that's the kind of stuff that we are looking for with success factor modeling.
I think, Cal, you read this book as well. Screw It, Let's Do It. It's a Richard
Yes.
Branson book from many years ago.
I love it. One of my favorite.
And one line, I mean, a few things stand out, but one line in relation to this conversation, I think it was Screw It, Let's Do It. He said, I never hire on skills, I hire on attitude. And with what you're saying now, it sounds like you've almost found a way to quantify the unquantifiable, the intangible.
Yes, and actually one of the results of this is a company that I started called Mindset Maps International. And the whole idea of a mindset map, right, is that you're mapping mindset, which is different than skill, right? It's different than your background. It's, how you think about things. And mindset is not, it's also different than personality. I mean, your personality might give you a tendency toward a certain mindset, but mindset itself is something that it's like the filters that you bring in order to be able to, perceive something or to work with something. So in fact, the key thing, what we say in success factor modeling, is we're always working with the 3 different dimensions: mindset, actions, and outcomes. And the whole notion is that your mindset, of course, determines your actions.
Yes.
If you're going to do something differently, you got to think differently. And those actions are what create outcomes. So if you go, okay, I want to achieve this outcome, I want to scale my business, for example, or I want to increase my profitability, or I want to, increase my level of contribution, that means I've got to take different actions. But then if I'm going to take those actions, I got to change my mindset, right?
Change
If I'm going to do
behavior result. 100%. How many times, Callum, do we get people saying, tell me what I need to do in order to create success? And when we say you're going to change your mindset, they say, I don't get it. I don't understand that.
Right.
Just tell me what to do.
Talked a lot recently about how we're calling it the shift that needs to occur, which is it's almost at the identity level,
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
And that identity changes the prism by which your perceptions flow through, and therefore you are better equipped, or that new identity that you've been shaped by makes it easier to achieve those outcomes through the actions that you take.
Absolutely. Well said, Kallum. I mean, very well articulated.
I'm curious, Robert, with those 3 things, you made it sound really simple, by the way: mindset, action, and outcomes. It feels like if you're in a group situation, I noticed this when we were working in a large team, which could go from anywhere, 10 people to 130 people, depending on the events that we're running.
Yes.
There is such a unique, twist that can occur when you bring in different people, right?
Yes.
And it's almost like that one person can shift the filters and the perceptions and the attitude of everybody else in the group. So
yes,
it makes me think of chemistry, and when you add different things together, those 2 things might be stable together, but then you add this one other thing, and all of a sudden you get combustion or an explosion or something like that.
Absolutely.
This comes down to such a meta level with the way that you're observing the data. How can you take such a simple model, I guess is what I'm saying, and still work out what is the change that is making the difference amongst that group?
So that's a great question. And by the way, I mean, these are precisely the kind of questions that we seek to answer with success factor modeling. So first of all, there's the whole notion, as I was saying, of collective IQ, and there are certain fundamental things. What you find is that, and I think first thing that's interesting here, Kallum, is that what they find. So Google did this study a number of years ago, and I think they spent something like 6 years studying 800 teams. They spent several millions of dollars trying to find what made the best teams. And the first thing they realized, kind of going back to what you were saying, Kallum, was that actually the same individual could be in a very a successful team and a very unsuccessful team. So it wasn't about the individual, right? So the individual could be in that group that was working well or not. So they first were looking at, okay, what is it that creates a collective IQ? And they came up with some very fundamental things, like what they called equality of conversational turn taking, which just simply meant, if you had an hour that most people, that the people in the group would contribute roughly equally, rather than one person dominating the whole thing, because then you get that person's intelligence and not the intelligence of the group. The second thing was, I think, very interesting for us in terms of NLP, because it's what they called social sensitivity, which basically meant that people would pay attention not just to what was being said, but what we would call calibration, right? The meaning that, I'm sensitive to the state of people. So if somebody's in, a negative state, you don't just keep pushing on, so there's this kind of sensitivity to each other. The third was what they called psychological safety. And psychological safety meant that people felt that they could say what they actually thought, rather than, just try to hide, or just to go along with everybody else says, because that's what you get. You don't get intelligence there. It's called groupthink, right? Groupthink is just, we're all going to say the same thing because nobody wants to, rock the boat or be rejected or be, whatever, criticized.
Yeah.
The fourth thing was what they called task significance. And task significance meant that everybody felt that what we are doing, it makes a difference for something beyond just our team. It's not just about us. It's we are actually making a positive difference. So those were sort of these key things that would actually help to have a successful group. But now then, what, you were saying, but then what takes this group to the next level? And that's where in our mindset work, we have this, there are different aspects that we will identify as either, we call it's either sort of like it's a hobby for some people, it's a capability for some people, it's an excellence for some people, or it's a genius for some people, right? And oftentimes people are hired for capability, right? So they have the capability, but it's neither an excellence, nor is it certainly a genius. And what usually is the thing that makes the difference, if you take somebody like a Steve Jobs, right? Everybody, you can hear all kinds of complaints about him. I mean, I knew the guy, I didn't particularly like him most other people, but the guy was a genius. There was like no question. He inspired people, and that was a catalyst. You didn't have to like him. Actually, that's the great thing, was sort of like, so that people aren't doing something because they're, because they like him, is they're doing it because it actually makes a difference. And so you get this kind of an interesting catalyst of somebody that pulls all those pieces together. So anyway, I know that's kind of a longish answer, but I think first understanding what creates a collective IQ, and then what elevates that collective IQ to a next level it's one of the things that I've really been interested in. I've had the great opportunity to, of course, witness and be part of some of these kinds of, successes.
So in the groups you've worked with, would you go in and say, we're missing a genius here? Or words to that effect?
So we actually have, I was talking about this mindset map. We actually have a thing we call a team report. And so one of the things, one of the things we do in success factor modeling is you say, okay, to have a successful venture, you have to create what we call a circle of success.
Okay.
The circle of success, in the center of that circle of success is something you talked about, Kallum, which was identity, right? So there's got to be a sense of identity. And then and that could, again, individual identity, team identity, organizational identity. Then the circle around that center, first quadrant is your customer and your market, right? So now you've got this, my identity has to be, it's somehow in service of this customer. The second quadrant is your team, right? So who am I working with? The third quadrant is your what you call your stakeholders, or your shareholders, your investors. And then the fourth is your partners, who they're not investors, they're not team members, they're not customers, but they're, you partner with someone who is complementary. It could be, again, another team that's complementary, another company that's complementary. And so what happens is to truly have a successful venture, you need to be strong in each of these areas. And there are some people, like my younger brother, John, was actually a genius at partnering. He could take two companies and figure out how they could work together, double either their innovation or their revenue without having to pay anything, just because they complement each other. I mean, he was like, we're constantly seeing this. Other people, like, Steve Jobs was actually started as a genius for his customers and also his team. When he was kicked out of Apple, it wasn't because the customers complained. It actually wasn't because the team members complained. It was because he didn't give a crap about what the stakeholders. And he learned when he started Next that, okay, I've actually got to kind of, make peace with these guys. They're the investor. I can't just fight with them. So anyway, what this team report does is it says, look, if you're really, it can tell you. So you've got people, you've got a good competence here, and you have excellence there, but you're going to need genius, given your goal. This is the whole notion, going back to this idea of outcome action mindset. If your goal is, to say double your revenue, you're going to need something more than just a competence in the marketing area, or even in the partnering area. And so it can tell you, okay, here's where you need to given this goal, you need to have a genius there. And then of course, what do we define as a genius is somebody.
That's the next question. Yeah.
Right. So we have in this mindset map, we have meta mindset, macro mindset, and micro mindset. So meta mindset is your big picture clarity. Macro mindset is your ongoing habits of success. And then micro mindset is your daily, focus, your daily priorities. So meta mindset are things like your passion, your vision, right? Your level of ambition, etc. Macro mindset are things like, okay, do you have daily ways of interacting with customers, getting feedback, scanning for opportunities? Are you able to stay persistent when things are difficult? Right. So those are like these, they're the engine that runs so the big picture is showing you where to go. And these are the things that put all of that into place. And then the micro mindset would be something like, we would say like, market maker, product creator, team maker, competence builder. We also have terms we call like a resourcer or a finance sorcerer, somebody who's able to go and, get to financing. That's their passion. So you have an excellence in something if these three levels of mindset line up, right? If you have strengths in each one. And then you have a genius when these are then connected to the center of that circle of success, which is passion, identity. And so, it's one of the big differences between, you can take John Scully was who Steve Jobs brought in, from Pepsi. But John Scully did not have the genius. He was not a product creator like, Steve Jobs was. He was a marketing guy. And so when they kicked Steve Jobs out, they lost that and they almost went bankrupt, right? Till they brought him back in. And so, there's a great example, by the way, where you see one person, when they brought him back in, my older brother, Michael, was working for Apple during this time, was a high level manager there. And he said, Apple was literally probably 3 months away from going bankrupt.
Wow.
They brought Steve Jobs back in, and within a few days, he made these partnerships with Microsoft. Their stock went up 30% because of, one person, but that not just because the person was there, but what that person started to do. So anyway, I think these are just some kind of examples of how mindset we say, mindset matters most. And
does the genius always have to be a leader? In the example we had now, Steve Jobs was the leader. And when he came back, he stripped back. They had 160 offers, 160 products, and he stripped it back to 15 or those numbers might be off, but the significance of the change is
right,
pretty accurate.
Because basically those things did not resonate with their identity. Wait, sorry, Kallum,
I said that the good news
we
is
didn't
that
hear you.
that, that time that he went away, we got Pixar, the animation company that
That's
he
right.
was away, which created
Yeah.
Toy Story and those
Yes.
things. So that was the good news.
We, yeah. What, and to come back to your question, Conor, about does it have to be a leader? It's an interesting question. When I talk about conscious leadership, and I make a distinction between leader, which is a role, leadership, which is a capability, and leading, which is an actual behavior. So and I often like to say, leader does not always have leadership capabilities.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
very fortunate we can see this in many different situations. And and people who have leadership capability don't always lead. So you have, again, I think it's important to be looking at that. I've done so much work in so many international organizations. And I remember one guy said something very interesting. He said, it's not who you work for that's important. It's who you listen to. So,
I
so
like that.
who's the leader, right? Is it the one that is the boss, or is it the one that I'm actually listening to? Because that's who that's who I'm following, right?
Yeah.
So, so, and then there's what I call meta leadership, which means leading other leaders. So when we say leader, to me, it's a kind of a fluid term, because a person may be a leader in their particular area, even though they're not, quote, the boss, right? But they are a leader. When I do my leadership work, we say that I start with, the origin of the word leader, and leadership comes from it's one of these few words that actually is English. It's not from
Latin or
Greek or Latin. And it was from lethan, and lethan was an old English word that didn't mean power or control or anything. It meant basically to go, and essentially to go first. So that's what, if you take that as the definition of leadership, to go somewhere, what do you need? You need two things. I need a direction, because I'm not going anywhere. I don't have to necessarily know the destination, right? If I can know that I'm going west, at least I can go. So I need a direction. Which way am I going to go? And then you need energy, right? Because no energy, no go, right? So leaders are the ones that are able to provide the direction and bring the energy. Now, there's different ways of bringing energy as a leader, right? You have your dictators that can bring energy through fear, through threat, whatever.
Yes.
But you also have your inspirational leaders. So they're going to bring energy in a completely different way. So this is, again, when we talk about that, so kind of going back to this question, Callum, about catalyst, a catalyst is energy, right? It's a certain energy for a certain thing. And that's what, again, if you look at a team and what's necessary to take something to a next level, you got to go, we need energy here. We need some kind of spark there. And that's why you need the genius there, not just the competence.
And the genius, this Lorna Buckland, by the way, joined us. Does the genius have to, and I say have to, but they can't care about what other people think. Otherwise they would subdue or dampen their genius. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's absolutely the case. And most times, when you say to somebody, oh, you're a genius at that, they go, they go, no, I'm not, because it's for them, they're not, nobody, typically self-proclaimed geniuses, you should be, let's say, suspicious of. Usually what makes a genius, right, is that they have some kind of what I would call a superpower, right?
Yeah.
What is superpower? If you take a superhero, right? Superhero is born with the superpower. So they, and we talk about this in the success factor modeling work. A lot of times the paradox of your superpower is you're not aware of it, because you just go, well, there's nothing special about that. It's just what I do, So usually it takes other people to mirror back your superpower, because you don't really know it. But a lot of times people waste their superpower, A, because they don't know it, or B, then because they're put in a role that is not leveraging that superpower. So, and that's where you get down to what I was calling the micro mindset is usually what is most related to your superpower. So it's the kind of thing that's just natural to you. You perform way above the norm without trying. That's the basic idea of a superpower. And of course, people can have multiple superpowers. Again, with a genius, the, so you're basically just being you. So if somebody criticizes it, it's like, well, too bad. I mean, this is just what you do, right? It's like that's your nature. But I think to then really use the genius, and I think this is where what you were saying becomes important, is then you kind of have to be planted in the right garden, if you will. In other words, either that or, like you say, you don't. The nature of genius is that you're breaking the norm, right? It's disruptive. You're not fitting in. Otherwise, you wouldn't be if you're just doing what everybody else did, what everybody else did, you wouldn't be a genius. So the genius is getting out of the box, which basically means, of course, you're not doing it because you're trying to get other people's approval. You're doing it because it's coming out of your passion, or it's because it's in service of something that is beyond whatever that, whatever the criticism is about.
Fascinating.
It's true.
Cal, I'll hand the mic back to you.
I like the question, Conor, because what it makes me think of, for a genius to become a genius, to have to go through this valley of unrelatability where people won't understand what they're doing because it's so much of what their genius is. People won't necessarily look and observe what they're doing and understand it straight away. It's not until, someone sees a practical application of that, or how it can be applied in the real world, that they actually then go, from their level, that guy's a genius. So for them, they have to go through this valley of unrelatability.
Yes.
Which I think is also reflective of going first, Robert.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting sort of connection here between this notion of genius, and I've looked at this whole idea of strategies of genius, but also I think what you were just saying, Kallum, is there's a connection to what you might also call a hero's journey, right? So the hero's journey means there's a calling here. I'm being called for something. And I am going to what makes it a hero's journey is not I think of myself as a hero. It's that I've got to go over what you call a threshold. I mean, I've got to go into this new territory. I've got to go outside of the comfort zone into the unknown that you were calling the valley of unrelatability.
Yeah.
And then I've got to meet these demons. I've got to meet the challenges, and so I've got to be willing, and usually the calling, by the way, what we call the calling is something at an identity level. Right. It's I'm going to have to grow in some way in order to contribute something that has never been done before. And so I've got to get outside of that comfort zone. I've got to get outside of that box into this unknown territory. And I think that also, then requires a certain set of both skillfulness, but also what we would call guardians. And the guardians are the ones that are going to support you through that place of unrelatability when nobody else understands you, but they're still there with you. They might not even understand, but they're going, I'm here for you. That's actually one of the interesting things that we notice about successful people, is that one of the common patterns of successful people is they have a supportive spouse, or partner, somebody that is supporting them because, they're doing things that are outside of that box. So.
And there's that saying, there's a fine line between insanity and genius. And I think you have to displace common sense. You have to displace common sense. Common sense would say, do not do this, because that's what the norm would do.
That's the thing Steve Jobs said, right? He said, usually the people, the people who are crazy enough to think you can change the world are the ones that do, right? So you got to be able to. Actually, one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs, he's called The Secret. And he said it's, when you grow up, you tend to be told that the world is the way that it is, and that your life is to live your life inside that world. He said, make some money, have some fun, have a good family life, but don't disturb things too much. And he said, but that's a pretty limited life. He said, life can be much broader once you understand this one simple fact, which is that everything around you that we call the world was made up by people, he said, no smarter than you, right? And that you can change it. You can make a difference. It's the way he says it, you can push something here and something will come out the other side. And he said, as soon as you realize that, you're going to want to make it better,
Yeah.
And so as soon as you realize that, you're going to realize I can make my own things. I can actually shape this world, right? I can actually make a difference in this world. And I think, so I think most people are stuck in that box that the world is the way it is. And I think that's part of what is the mindset of the genius, right? Is that I can change it. I can make a difference. I'm not just, I have agency. I'm not just stuck. So I think these are some keys, this idea then of you got to be a little bit crazy and then, but you've got to then get other people to sort of believe in your craziness, if you will.
Well, Cal, that we had a guest just before Christmas, and there's a great little YouTube video, and it's about leadership. And there's one person, it's like a dance festival, and there's one person dancing on this hill, and they're by themselves, and they're doing dancing that's a little bit sort of out of the ordinary.
Yes.
But as soon as the first person comes along and starts dancing next to them, then there's a third, and then there's a fourth. And he said the most courageous person out of all of them is not necessarily the person who was dancing first, but the first person that came up to support that person. That's correct, because that person's crazy by themselves. Yeah. So now you're going up to support them, then you're almost saying I'm crazy by association, and you have to believe in them from the outside looking in instead of being through their eyes doing what they do.
That's absolutely wonderful, brilliant. Yeah.
So it really resonated.
These team dynamics then could almost be set up as a symbiote for the genius that helps the genius elevate themselves further. So if the team has the right combination, because we've settled on this notion of genius, but there's a whole other, greater part of this structure that you're talking about within these systems and models. But that system of the team could be set up in such a way that the genius of the person could be better expressed and more, I guess, useful, or, find greater practical application for that. Because of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so that's the whole notion. So this idea of, so one of the examples I give, actually, this came out from my work. I did something a number of years ago, was consulting for a well-known telecommunications company. This one happens to be based in France. But they have, the reason they were asking me to come in to do this success factor modeling was because actually they'd had a big failure and they were trying to understand what happened. And so the situation was they knew that they had to develop a new product, very quickly. It's telecommunications forever has been very competitive. And this was a particularly competitive point. They needed to develop this new product. It was so important to them that they literally put 1,000 people on this project. Now, the failure was that one of their competitors was able to make a better product, so better quality, less expensive, and more quickly. They were first to market. So they were outperformed in every key performance indicator. But the most astonishing thing was that this competitor did it with a team of 20 people. So the question was, how could 20 people so completely outperform 1,000 people? And the answer is, along these lines we've been talking about, it has to do with leadership. It has to do with collective IQ. It has to do with genius. And so what this 1,000 group was basically organized the same, in the traditional hierarchical thing, few people telling you what to do. It comes down, you're basically in your little cubicle, you do your job, you do what you're assigned, no less, certainly no more, you're just going to do your thing. And then you get what I call, at best, collected intelligence. Right? 1 + 1 + 1 hopefully adds up. Right. Collective intelligence, though, this team of 20 people They weren't by themselves in their little room doing what they were told. They were all, that somebody would, the leader would sort of give this inspirational idea that would inspire these others. They would start, just like you were saying, kind of bouncing things off using their own superpowers to put, to focus through that lens of this vision. And so, and they didn't stop working. They didn't punch their card out and go home. They were like in their sleep, still thinking about it. They might call somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning when their kid is up and they suddenly have this idea. And so they were constantly, so you get, in this case, you get 1 + 1 is more than 2, right? It makes 3, 4, 5, because there's this exchange. And they also all had ownership of that. So, and I think this was something that Steve Jobs was able to do, people would have a feeling of ownership. It's not, I'm doing what he told me. It's like, we have this vision. Yeah. We are changing the world, right? We are making a difference. And so I think that's part of that key in what makes the collective IQ.
So I like the way you specified the group collected and group
versus
collective.
Yeah.
I mean, from a layman's term, I use the word synergy. Is that similar?
Yeah, I would say that there's the 3 things that are necessary for this collective intelligence, for this just generativity, is it's resonance, synergy, and emergence. So resonance. So if I try to have synergy with no resonance, I get conflict, right? Because you get so synergy means I got difference. So first you've got to have sameness. Where do we resonate? And the key is if you resonate around the vision, then that gives you a lot of space for these differences to complement each other. So the resonance is necessary to bring together the differences, create synergy. Now, then the key is emergence is when something happens that is not predictable, right? Suddenly, you get something new that's coming. I mean, I think of NLP. You had John Grinder, who was a linguist. You had Richard Bandler, who was basically studying, Gestalt therapy, amongst many other things. They were both geniuses in their own right. But there would be no NLP without the 2 of them. NLP is not Richard plus John. It's something that came out of this that was neither one of theirs. It's not John and that's not Richard. It's us, right? Yeah. There's this we. And I think that's what you mean by the synergy.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not 2. Again, it's not 1 + 1. It is somehow this third thing. It's like hydrogen and oxygen making water. If you take the hydrogen away, there's no water. If you take the oxygen away, there's no water. So where is the water? And it's not in the hydrogen or the oxygen. It's in this interaction.
Fascinating. Cal, I've got another thought. We spoke about modeling. We spoke about identity. Where's the line?
I think I'm a little bit delayed. So you guys are probably getting me a couple of seconds behind.
Go ahead, Kallum.
I'll let you go, Conor. But I had just one more before we left the whole.
Go for it, buddy.
Well, I had a question about genius. So,
okay.
Obviously, you said that people have genius, but they need to be in the environment for it to emerge, right? The other question I guess I had, it's twofold. One is does everyone have a genius? Does everyone have a genius? So, do we all have the capability of being geniuses? And the second thing is there, and this might kind of go off the planet a little bit for you, Robert, I'm not sure, but is there a divine nature to genius as well?
Well, so again, I think it depends on how we define genius. This is all very, of course, it's really fascinating. I'm working on the Strategies of Genius, Volume 4. I mean, genius has been something that's been a really, an important thing for me in my work. And I think, I think that what I would say is that everybody has probably a superpower. Let's put it that way. For that superpower, though, to become a genius, I think you need 2 things, right? One is the superpower by itself has to be put into action. And what puts it into action? Number one is, this is one of the things we define as a genius, that this superpower is connected to your passion, right? So, because if it's not connected to my passion, it's just a thing, right? It's just a capability. When that connects to your passion, then you're going to be, really, it's like supercharging the superpower, right? Uh, so when I think of somebody like a Steve Jobs, when you think of Steve Jobs, the guy he was, and I don't know if you've seen, actually, there's some interesting videos of him working with his team at Next. This passion is palpable, and it comes across, it inspires others. And then the second thing is, then you need also some kind of the conditions, right? The context to support that genius. So yeah, you could say, on one hand, you could say everybody has the potential for genius, for sure. But for that genius to actually come out and to make a difference, it needs to first be connected to something that you're passionate about. And secondly, then there's got to be these conditions that allow it to somehow express. Otherwise, it could all be in your head, but no, nothing's going to happen. You like you were just saying, Conor, you need the second person that's going to come in with you, and then hopefully
who's not as crazy, but almost as crazy to believe it. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, Kallum, but that's how I.
Yeah, it does. And I guess the second part of that was like this genius that we do tap into. In my way of thinking, it's tapping into a higher version of yourself. So that led me to think, does it have
Yes,
sort of divine nature to it? Because it kind of elevates your consciousness in a way.
yeah, yeah. I think that this notion of that, this is when I talk about conscious leadership, right? I think this is what I'm probably connecting into in terms of what you're asking. So, I was saying there's lots of types of leadership, right? You can say, a dictator is a leader, right? A guru is a leader, but a conscious leader is somebody that they are elevated and they're elevating others, right? You're not just getting other people to do your bidding. So I think, we would say, and this is where I think something like where, this kind of language I use is where your passion connects to a bigger vision, and that vision is something bigger than yourself. And I think that's the divine aspect. And the other aspect to, I think, what you might call divine, I do a whole program that I call the art of charisma. And so if, we think of good leaders and we think of geniuses, there's a kind of a charisma. Now, charisma is it's a Greek word, and it literally means your gift. It's grace. It's something that you're given. And so your charisma is not something you can pretend, right? People I'm going to try to be charismatic, and actually then you're not charismatic. So you're only charismatic when you're actually truly deeply connected to this divine gift, you could call it. And that's what I'm saying could be like a superpower. But then when that gift is used in service, right, that's when the light shines out, right? So you could say, your charisma, starts your passion, everything is like a flame that's inside of you, but then you got to shine that. And I think that's what I would call the vision, And I think the genius, obviously, is somebody that doesn't just have the superpower. It's somebody who's using the superpower in service to make a better world, or to make people's lives better in some way.
Beautiful.
So,
Great question. So
yes, you guys, that's one of your superpowers is you guys is your questions are just like
curiosity.
You ask me a question, I feel like I'm fireworks here, but yeah, thank you.
So, I mean, two things came to my mind. One of them is an image of a coconut in a coconut tree, and there's a shark, a monkey, an elephant, and a snake,
Right.
and then someone says, okay, whoever can get the coconut is the smartest person, and
Right.
we're sort of testing everyone based on the one skill set.
Right.
So then the second, I mean, that was really just an insight. The second question is, in order for us to find our genius, we would, in theory, have to go and put ourselves into a lot of different situations in order for us to be like a magnet connected with, oh, wow, that felt differently. I've never felt that feeling before.
Yes.
I think I might start doing more of that.
Yes.
And is there yeah, I'd love to know your insights about how do you know, and B, is there, like, sometimes people say I've lived life, I'm 55 and I still haven't found what I want to do. Is
Mm.
that because someone's still searching unconsciously for that magnetism towards their genius?
Yeah, and a little bit like you say, what oftentimes it's because people are searching, but they're searching in the wrong place.
Mm.
So one of the things we do, and I think this maybe is interesting and might even be interesting for listeners as well, is I'm saying, like, so there's two aspects of this genius minimum, like at the foundation. One is your superpower, and the other is your passion. Right. So if I don't know what
Mm.
my passion
Mm.
is, and I don't know what my superpower is, I'm basically kind of, wandering,
Floating. Yeah.
so
Or a
often,
jellyfish in the ocean.
often I have people start by going, what's your passion? Right.
Yeah.
What is it that really, lights your flame? And of course, where people, they look outward for that. They go, well, my passion is riding horses or something. So then if I'm not riding horses, I have no passion. But actually, and this is the key, and this is about modeling, I would go, okay, no, the passion isn't riding the horse, right? What does the riding the horse do for you? What happens when you ride the horse? Oh, then I feel free. Oh, freedom is your passion, right?
Mm.
Because then I can bring my passion to whatever I do. So that problem is that people think the passion comes from the thing I do. No,
Mhm.
it's what that brings out in me. So we usually have people we start by finding five, the five key ways of representing your passion, or what would be the 5 words and 5 gestures. So for example, in my case, um, I say, if I look at all the things I've done, I've written 30 something books. We were trying to count the other day with somebody's like 35 books or something. Because I'm not even sure of ones that were published in other languages that haven't been published in English. I've designed, I don't know how many different seminars, I've written the 50 something article, blah, blah, blah. I've done all these things. They're all coming from a particular passion. Like, I don't have a passion for writing books, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not passion. That's an expression of the passion. So my passion, I would say, the 5 words, the first one is connection. I love connections. I like finding connections, connecting ideas, obviously, like with you guys, it was like connect these ideas, but also connecting with people.
Mm.
So that's my first one. Second one is what I call awakening. I like to connect things because then suddenly there's a bigger awareness of something more. And so all of the things I do is to create this kind of, awakening, a bigger picture. My third is creativity. I like to create things. I draw pictures. I create me. I was thinking about this. You were talking about piano, Callum, but I compose on piano, and so I love creating. Of course, that's where writing comes in, and doing seminars. And then my fourth word is contribution. Through that connection, that awakening, that creating, I want to contribute. And then the fourth one is inspiration. And I want to inspire others. So when all those things come together, that's when I'm on fire, right? When I'm connecting
Mm.
things, and there's this kind of these new ideas awakening, and creativity and contribution. That's why having these conversations with you is like it gets my passion, because every single one of those things gets triggered. And of course, I can also bring that to what I do. I don't have to wait. I can sort of bring that. And actually, my picture of my passion and how that works in the world is it's actually comes from this saying, I think that was from the Buddha, where he said, from a single candle, you can light 1,000 other candles without diminishing your candle any more than if you just held it, didn't do anything with it. And so I see me as my passion is this flame, and I want to light these other candles, and then they're going to light other candles, and they're going to light other candles. And then you're going to have just this, you know, um, spreading of light through the world, of energy and light. And so again, that's the kind of thing where I think that people get stuck because they don't know where to find their passion. I mean, if you take somebody like a Richard Branson,
Mm.
Richard Branson said that the best thing that you can do with your life is to live your passion in, that in a way that serves others and serves you, you know, and that's why this guy can, this created these, 400 and something companies. Um, so when you have that, then you're never bored and you're never dissatisfied. So,
Yeah.
but again, kind of coming back, you got to know how to find it and then how to anchor it, how to keep it, because there's a lot of things that are going to potentially, either blow that candle out or, cast a shadow. So I think these are some of the kinds of skills. I don't know if that, I was just thinking of for the person who goes, I'm 55 and I still haven't found what I want to do yet. That's where I would start with them. I'd say, let's start looking at your passion. What have you loved to do ever since you were a kid? Whether it made, whether anybody else approved or not, even people go, I want to play video games. They got to realize video games is actually not your passion. What do you get when you play the video game? What do you feel inside? Oh, maybe it's because I feel like this sense of, of achievement. Oh, okay. That's the thing. Let's focus there. Let's bring more of that into your life, no matter what you're doing. I think that's the secret. So I kind of went off on a little bit, maybe more than what you were asking, but
You have a pass to go as far off as you want, Robert.
yes.
We appreciate it.
Okay. I appreciate that.
So in regards to success factor modeling, could you maybe role play with Callum and I, or showcase some, because many of our viewers, I think most of them would be from the Australian region, Southeast Asian, and success factor modeling, I think, would be relatively new to them unless they'd done their own study. A few people have logged in and said, "Hey, I've read your book," which is awesome. Is there a way you could maybe give a taste of it?
Sure. I mean, like I was just saying, I mean, first thing is, we've been kind of dancing around with it a little bit. We've been talking about superpowers, talking about passion. I mean, if I was going to be doing the way we typically start with the success factor modeling is you start with we say this meta mindset. So what is your passion? What is your vision? What is your mission? So, maybe we can do this a little bit. And then what is your ambition? And finally, what is your role? So the way I describe it is the passion is like what I was talking about, this flame, right? This is what brings me alive. It's where my energy comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Vision is what I see when I look to the future through my passion. Like, so what would I like to see more of in the world, or see more of, see less of? Then your mission is, what are you going to do about it? If I have this passion and I want to see this future, what do I do? And that's where, of course, you bring in this notion of your superpower and putting your superpower into the right, into the right direction, aligning it. And then your ambition is, what do you want to achieve concretely? So by doing that, what are you trying to actually concretely achieve that's taking you in the direction of the vision? And then your role is, okay, so who are you and who do you need to be? And what does all that, what does that all bring together? And that's where, the person is going, well, what do I want to do? That's how you find those things. So my invitation to you guys would be, maybe we can, if we were to start with that, and again, if we just even wanted to do a little bit of the idea of success factor modeling, start with the modeling part, we would be looking first at you guys and your success, because I think you are a great example of success. And so the big question would be, so what's the secret sauce of your success that then you can, once you know that, you can, take it to the next level. And plus you can also share it with others. So for me, that might start by asking you guys, well, so what is the passion that brought you together to create Connekt? What is it that, and that you get out of it? Let's start there. What would you say?
For me, it's about I love making a difference.
Yeah.
So I'd worked with Cal before, for about six or 7 years. We had a a break of about a year, and then we got back together and created Connekt Coaching, and it was making a difference in the passion, the shared passion for it's over more than doing the right thing, but making a difference with someone, but doing it in a way that was ecological, I guess, and some
Right.
aligned values levels that we
Yeah.
haven't necessarily quantified, but it's there.
Yeah. So now the next thing I would ask you is, so that's the words you would use. So you said, basically you said something about making a difference. If you were going to show that with a gesture, how would you show it? If you, in other words, if people didn't understand or they were deaf and you had to show that my passion is this, how would you show that?
High five.
So, yeah,
High
show it.
five.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the passion. And then what kind of image comes to you with that? What picture?
Smiling, proud, happy,
Yeah.
doing something that lights you up, passion,
Yeah.
you know,
Like-
making it again, making a difference,
Mm.
enjoying it and but doing well financially at the same time so that we can do more of it.
Yeah. I mean, so we got, so that was our first step. So we first go, okay. So part of the success, part of your success is your passion for making a difference.
Yeah.
And for seeing those smiles and high-fiving. Kallum, is it the same for you, or how would you express your passion? Again, you think what has made, when we think about what's made Connekt a success, what's the passion that brought you to do this?
Coaching specifically, it's finally doing something that I feel aligned with, that lights me up. So I've done a lot of things that have lit me up in the past, but it's only been occasionally, and it hasn't felt fully aligned. So working with Conor and
What is it that lights you?
what is it that lights me up?
What's the word you would say? The thing that lights you up about it is what?
Okay, a couple
I
of
get
things.
lit up about it because
I'm living life on my terms. I think living life on my terms, and
Yes.
I'm doing that through helping others.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So now, Ellen, if you were going to show that with a gesture, how would you show that? If you couldn't use words and you had to show me,
There's this hank that we've always always done at the end of the training. I've definitely done it. We've done it in a few photos together as well. But like I clench my fist and I get the same reaction of when we've had those big wins at the end of the training, because you go through this process of the whole year long. You know this, Robert, when you do a trainer's training and you get everybody there, and then you see it's almost like a rite of passage they go through. It's an actual ritual. Trainer's training is like an actual ritual that people go through. And they're not the same on the other side. They've completely taken on this new identity. And it's the culmination of all those things that have lit me up. But at the end, it's like the success of like, yes, we did it, you know what I mean? We did it again. And I do this little fist pump with my hand.
Yeah. That's a fist pump.
Yeah.
Great. So high five and a fist pump. That's great. Yeah. And Kallum, what's the image of this when you're lit up? I mean, what's your image of this?
Funny, because like, as you say,
your picture.
I'm thinking it's always like the image is like being in the room with it's kind of like graduation day, right? So everyone's kind of celebratory, they've, metaphorically throwing their hats in the air. They're going around like feeling euphoric and hugging and high fiving, but there's also a sense of like, you've earned it. You earned that. There was something about it that was like earned. And you can't take that away because it was, I don't know. Yeah. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah. So again, as a little demo of success factor model, we started with step one. Step one is to go, okay, if we're going to model your success so that you can keep strengthen it, make more of it. We go, okay, it starts with this passion. And the way that you said it, Conor, was it's about making a difference. It's high five. It's seeing these smiles. And then on your side, Kallum, you added another thing. You said living life on my terms and doing things that, help others, that, support others, make a difference to others. And so we would say, so that's really the seed of your success is that's the, that's the DNA of it, right? Now then the second part is, remember I said, so just having the passion isn't enough, right? That's not enough to make the success. So the next part is your vision. So if you think about the vision that you have for Connekt, what's the vision that you have? And maybe it's the vision that you started with and still have, or maybe it's evolved. But when you look to the future through this passion that you guys share, I mean, and where it's not, again, notice it's not the exact same words and it's not the exact same gestures, but there's clearly resonance, right? And so that's resonance is a key part of it, right? That's your foundation. But then you're different. You ask different questions. You have different perspectives. That's the synergy. But now, again, this is this notion. So what is the vision you have for Connekt? What is it that you want to see? So if you look to the future, let's start with you, Conor. When you look to the future from your passion, what is it that you want to see more of? What is the future that you want to see through Connekt?
I've said, really, my vision is, it is about making that difference. And the way, I guess, that's the big picture, and the way that we do it is through teaching ways to do business that is ecological, that does the right thing by people, that utilizes the most cutting edge and up to date methods of doing it. But ultimately teaching people how to live a sustainable lifestyle in their business, so that they love what they do and they can do more of it every single day, as Cal said, on their terms.
It's interesting. You actually answered two questions. You actually answered the vision and the mission, because the mission is about what you do and how you do it, which is what you were doing. So, but which is great, but if we put the focus for a moment just back on the vision, you said, okay, make a difference. What do you actually see? Like in this picture of the future, what image do you actually have? And it can be
like a big high five. Like I love seeing people feel and be better after interacting with me.
Yeah. So it's creating more of that in the world. Yeah.
100%. Yes. Letting people know that they can achieve, they can do it. I would always love, if someone was feeling bad at school, I was the one, I would love prepping them up and making them feel optimistic about the future again.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, it's remember we talked about mission and being part of your superpower, part of what comes naturally to you. Now you see that that's kind of unfolding there. It's like, okay, this is what makes this work. This is why you guys are so successful. And then here also usually with the mission, you get some of the values. And then you had things like, ecology, sustainability. So now you're going, all right, this is how you're unraveling. This is the key to this success. This is the DNA. And if you missed any of those pieces, it's not going to work the way it is. So Kallum, let's go for you about the vision and mission. How did you say, what is it you want to see?
I'm big on, Conor and I talk about this as well. It's like creating a bright future. And what that means through what we do is giving people the out of box, not just thinking, but the out of the box resources to be adaptable no matter what happens. So for me, the vision is to be able to do that at scale. So I often don't, a while ago, I stopped thinking about Connekt coaching as the coaching business. I've started to think about it as a media company, because we like to get that message out to as many people as we can, whether that's through our podcast, it's through our Connekt University that we have, it's through our greater community, or if it's through live events that we're doing and we're traveling around the world and, we're having more impact, on scale. That's what really, like, when I think about it, that's what really lights me up, because I think we've got some magic sauce. And when we come together, we are a bit of a yin and yang to each other. And through that, there is an emergence of this out of the box thinking of how to communicate, how to connect with people, how to build businesses. But the business itself is greater than just the business, because I feel like a lot of people go through a self-actualization process through they're developing, they're learning more about themselves. It's kind of like on almost spiritual level. But yeah, I'd like to do that on scale. That's what I want. That's what I say.
Yeah. So, and you also saying a little bit too about the mission in there. And by the way, it's one of the interesting things that happens with the vision and even your identity, right? It evolves. I was thinking about, Apple started as Apple Computer, right? That's their name was Apple Computer. Now the computers are only one tiny part because what they're doing, because the vision and the mission, that was just one expression. And just like you were saying, yeah, it starts as coaching, but actually what your vision is going to take you bigger than that. And that's going to keep evolving
Our business name is now Connekt. There's no coaching.
Coaching. You got it. It's like Apple Computer, Apple, because that's what you do. I love it. By the way, Connekt is also, it's my first passion, as you know. So it's like, no wonder. But, so now the next thing would be, and in terms of taking that success forward, right? Success factor modeling, is about your ambitions. And so the ambition would be, if you look ahead, so that's so now you have your passion, you have your vision, and even some aspects of that sense of your mission, which have to do with what you do, what are your values that drive you. Now, then the next question is, of course, putting that into some tangible form, which is, okay, and you were just talking about this, Kallum, scaling. Okay, if I was, and so an ambition is a big goal. It's a goal that you may or may not achieve. But the thing is, if I set I think it was Michelangelo who said, it's a lot worse to set little goals and achieve them, than to set a big goal and not reach it. I'd much rather set the big goal and miss it than, keep myself small and achieve it. So the idea of an ambition, it would be, okay, so if I look to that future, I want to look at Connekt a year or 2 years from now. If I was successful in this mission, if we were successful, so this would be answer to for both of you guys, question, what would you have achieved? And now achieve means, okay, we've said make a difference for people. We said, light people up, but how many? So now when you get to ambition, it's how many people in the next 2 years? 1,000, 1,000,000, 10 million? And of course, this becomes interesting because the ambition is where when we talk about the genius, and this is where all that stuff about, am I going to be criticized? Am I going to be told I'm insane to think I could actually reach this number of people? So ambition is where you're kind of the rubber starts meeting the road, right? So if I look to that future, I, in my own life, right? I started 50 years ago as a 19-year-old nobody. I had no money. I had no famous, relatives. All I was armed with was a passion and a vision. And, if I had said when I was 19, I'm going to be going to 30 different countries every year, or when we do our NLPU, we're going to have, X number. This sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But if you don't, nothing's ever going to happen. Right. So the interesting question would be, if you were ambitious, if you set a big goal, where would you want to see Connekt? Not just see it. What would you want to have achieved with Connekt? And let's say we have an anniversary conversation. We're looking back, let's say it's now 2027 or something. What's your ambition for Connekt? Let's start with you, Conor.
Are we now talking numbers?
Yeah, numbers.
And we're now 2026, and in 1 year from now, one of our main key KPIs is our core offer, which is Connekt University. And a goal for us is to have 100 current members, a minimum of 100, through Connekt University. And I think that's the spearhead, I feel, with the business, and the others sort of support that in order for us to achieve that. If you're looking for a specific number on something very, very chunked down.
Yeah. So now the whole thing is you want to chunk down, but think big.
Correct.
So, and the key to ambition is again, this is the part of where we're talking about, the hero's journey, right? I'm going to get out of that box. I'm stretching, it's in the service of this calling. But is 100 enough, or so it's got to be challenging. If it's overwhelming, if it's just ridiculous or overwhelming, of course not. But it's that place where it's on that edge.
If having 100 is on that edge for me anyway, because we have our corporate trainings that we do, we have our advisory, we have our top tier one-on-one mentoring, coaching, and consulting on top of the 100 at Connekt University. So that will be at a stretch, and would absolutely require us to bring in new resources in order to achieving it is one thing, maintaining it is another thing. So to maintain that, we would absolutely need more resources to maintain that, and then take it up to 200 in 28.
Great. So, Kallum, what about you? What would you say is your ambition? Look to that. You have your vision and your mission.
Yeah, I think it's like very specific around time frame. Like, 12 months from now, we Conor said this yesterday.
Yes.
I think Robin's quote, we overestimate what we can do in 12 months. We underestimate what we can do in 5 years, right? So if you're looking at specifically 12 months time, that 100 mark, maintaining that of active members, that would be amazing. But I also think there's a natural kind of place that Conor and I are going, and it wasn't necessarily our initial intention, but it's kind of happening by default. And I think it's as a result of the experience that we have, is that we're starting to become quite well known in the NLP industry as the people that you go to learn the business aspect of NLP businesses, right? Like, there's one thing to be certified as a coach and certified as a trainer.
Yes.
It's a whole nother thing to actually become the running the business successfully on the back end. You would know this, Robert. We've got so many talented trainers and coaches that people have never heard of, right? And that's simply because they have adopted the latest business strategies, the most up-to-date business strategies. So if you're looking at super ambition, if we could be like the literal household name for business results and success of every single coach and trainer in the NLP industry and the hypnosis industry, that would be like that super extreme and ambitious thing. And as a result of that, we get those extra corporate clients, we get those extra one-on-one clients. So that would be like this super duper.
Well, so actually, let me tell you, sort of naturally even going to the final question here, which is about the role. And so there's an interesting, in the same way, there's a connection between vision and mission, right? So I have that, there's the vision, what am I doing? There's a same connection between ambition and role, right? So if I achieve something, I become something, right? In other words, if you write a book, you're an author, and if you don't write it, if you say, I'm an author, you say, what have you written? No, I haven't written anything. Well, you start a business, you're an entrepreneur, right? So achievements and role I go together. So in other words, so the question would be, and it does go back, you were already answering it, Kallum. If you do get this ambitious goal of 100, members, 100 members, who do you become? Who are you in the world then? And the other question is, which is the kind of goes along with the mission vision. Who do you need to become in order to get that 100 people, 100 members? Who do you need to be or become to make that happen? And I think it becomes a really interesting question. And you said one way of saying it is what you said, Kallum, is you become sort of the household word, or you become known. But I'm just curious how you might answer that question. And, when you think about your passion, your vision, your mission, now in this ambition, who are you? Who is Connekt, and who do you become? And how would you, in this future?
Yeah, I think Cal, that was great. You mentioned, I mean, that's a massive presupposition that I haven't even mentioned, is that the only reason I'm on this path on a personal level because of the love that I had for NLP as soon as I learned it 22 years ago, and it completely changed my entire trajectory of my life. And one of the most enjoyable parts of our roles Cal and I had with the previous organization, it was that energy in the training room, which we loved. But it was also the support we gave after people graduated, and it ended up being more of a business coaching role as opposed to our titles, because we found more love helping people build and grow their NLP training schools and coaching practices.
Yes.
And that became almost how passionate as to why we did what we did. And the daily turning up to the office was how we did it. But what actually lit us up was the fact that we spoke with a new graduate. A month later, they call us back and said, they've just, been able to manage or being able to transition from full-time employment to full-time coaching. And for us, that's like, I'm helping that person because they're making a bigger difference in the world. And that's the high five. Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yeah. And we have a new trainer who's like, oh, Conor, I've just enrolled 3 people into my NLP practitioner training, and 2 of the 3 are now doing my master practitioner training. And then in a year's time, they have classes of 12 and so forth and so on. So that actually, that is inspiring. That's what, and because we've done what we've done for so long and we love it so much, that's the niche within the niche of the NLP.
Well, and that's so now we're really getting to this where we started, kind of coming full circle about your genius, right? Your guy's genius, which is not just it's not just a competence. There is an excellence. And again, you were saying, how do you find some of these things? Some of it you can only find by trying, right? By doing and getting feedback. And then again, getting your genius to take you to this next level. And by the way, I know we're kind of gone on a little bit over time, but what I would do next from the success factor modeling phase is we would take that vision, that ambition. So you have your vision, your ambition, and start running it through the Disney strategy, basically, dreamer, realist, critic. So we go, okay, that's your dream, right? 100 members next year. All right, let's start putting out the storyboard for it. Let's put it into time. You got 12 months. Let's start chunking it down. And then, okay, we're going to get out the critic, and then we're going to start building that circle of success, right? So it's the Disney strategy, but then supported by this idea of the circle of success. So, okay, I've got customers, team, because you were mentioning that you're going to have a bigger team. You got customers, team. Maybe you're going to need other stakeholders. Now, stakeholders can be literal investors, but investing is not only money; it can also be people's time, people's credibility. I mean, there's things where you might go, what kind of investment do I need? And so that would be another part of the storyboard. And then partners. If I want to get to there, who can I partner with? Who's not necessarily a competitor. Now, sometimes this is what Steve Jobs did to save Apple, right? He turned their enemy, Microsoft, into their partner. It's the first thing he did when he came back is he got, Bill Gates to commit to making, Office for the Macintosh, so turn the enemy into the partner. So that's where you would start looking at next to build your storyboard. You're going to build your storyboard by creating your circle of success for that, for that 100 members. And that's what we would do in success factor modeling. I'd love to do it. Both are
brilliant. No, this has been amazing, Robert. Thank you.
Thanks for see got 2 of you. You can see why it's possible.
Yeah, really powerful from a point of
view. We're starting with that share of it. Yeah. Because now you know who you are, right? Now you can know, okay, this is the DNA for our success. And you've got, and you can, if I was working with you, we'd map that actually out and we put some of these keywords down, because you have key things like sustainability, ecology, et cetera. And that all becomes the guidelines when you're building that storyboard and creating that circle of success that's going to get you there. And you guys will get there. that I can see.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate that, Robert. And we're really feeling blessed to come back again. We would love to, get you down to Australia and put a live event on and have some fun with you. For now,
right. So that's gonna be another one of these dreams.
Exactly. Well, we would love that. But how can people learn this from you? How can people learn this new modeling process?
Well, the easiest way is so the easiest way, actually, one of the things is we actually, interestingly enough, in February, we are starting a virtual next generation entrepreneur success factor modeling certification that will go through, I think goes through May and June. It's online. There's also, we have I have an online, we call it a dashboard where I've pre-recorded 30 38, I think, master classes for each part, kind of different things that we've been doing. There's like a master class for passion, for vision, for mission, those kind of things, plus this building the storyboard, and then coming up with what we would call your elevator pitch. So when you go to pitch Connekt, you go, the idea of the elevator pitch is within 2 minutes, you can get people revved up, excited, get them lit up about what you're doing, and they want to join you or support you. And people can find out about that through the diltsstrategygroup.com website. So just Dilts Strategy Group, all one word. There's also with our NLPU, there's the NLPU.com. So those are two places that people could find out about what's going on. And then there is also this, I was talking about this mindset maps. There is mindsetmapsinternational.com. So these are all places that people could find out more, but specifically to do the kind of stuff we were just doing, we're starting a next round starting next month. So
brilliant.
Thank you.
Is that live in person or online?
It's online.
Okay, awesome. So anyone from anywhere around the world,
from anywhere around the world,
check it out. Sign up, do it.
We'll have all those details.
And our goal is just like you guys. I mean, that's so aligned with you because it's all about, helping people, put together. We say, one of the things we say in success factor modeling, maybe it's a good way to sort of wrap up, is we say it's where you align ego and soul. And what I mean by ego is not Freud. What I mean by ego is like you were talking about. It's like on my terms. It's me. It's my passion. It's my values. But then your soul is, what do I want to do for others? What's the service? So when I can bring, myself and my service and bring those together, that's when you get that sweet spot. Like you were saying, Kallum, you said it so well, right? I'm living life on my terms and I'm making a difference for other people doing that. And so, that's what success factor modeling is all about, is to, bring those two things together. And, as I said when we started, live your dream and make a better world through your business, and make the business succeeds because of that.
Yeah.
So you guys are awesome.
Well, we appreciate it.
That's
Robert, thank you so much for the time. And as Cal said, absolute pleasure to have you back.
Yeah. Okay. Till the next time. Till the next time.
Signing off. Connekt Unplugged. Bye for now.
See you guys.
Thank you very much for watching the Unplugged podcast with Kallum and Conor from Connekt Coaching. Hope you loved this guest this week as much as we did. Cal?
What we wanted to remind you of is that if you wanted to steal our forever business model, which is perfect for all sorts of businesses around the world, to start to build extra revenue in your business right away, get instant access by clicking on the description and going into the link below, watching the 9-minute video where we unpack everything. See you next time.